Um, And Heather, do you, as long as Mr. Simmons is here, why don't we start with that and he can go on his way when he's done with his presentation. Do you want to introduce Robert?
Yeah, absolutely. Robert, are you ready to roll? I know you were expecting to come on a little later, but since you're here.
Yes, I thought I'd jump on straight away and happy to go ahead if that works, for sure.
Okay, great. Yeah, so everyone, I'm really excited to introduce you all to Robert Simmons. He is with Bravo Restoration. So they are a great company that will come in and remediate mold issues and smoke issues and all sorts of things. And he's here today to give you some tips about things you can do before you have to call them in that you might be able to help your clients with. So here's Robert Simmons.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Heather, and good morning, everybody, and good to meet you. I don't have a particularly long presentation in terms of number of slides. Hopefully, it will prompt some questions as we go through it. So rather than leaving questions to the end, if something comes to mind, by all means, jump in and ask me. My objective is this morning as a restoration specialist, as a company that, as Heather was saying, goes into homes all the time and looks at mold and water damage and smoke, smell, odors and biohazards, and we have a lot of processes obviously that address all those, but there's also, of course, a lot of things that can be done, remediated by your seller, your clients, whether they be buyers or sellers themselves. So they don't need to bring in a company and incur additional cost if something is not too, if the damage is not too severe. So that's what this is about, hearing it from a restoration company of those things that you can say to your clients safely. Well, if it's like this, then you could do this yourself. Okay, so let me share my screen. So yeah, just as Heather was saying, Bravo Restoration and Construction, we are an independent local as in Sonoma County based restoration company, been in business since 2010. We have a team of about 18 people, and we do both repairs as well as the mitigation and restoration work. And this topic is about water, mold, and smoke specifically. There are obviously other damages. I'm happy to address questions if you have thoughts about other damage, but that's what the content of this short presentation is about. Okay, so surface mold. You come across this all the time. It occurs particularly in poorly ventilated or areas of rooms like bathrooms of high humidity. So can you address this yourself? Sure, or a homeowner can. So we would suggest 20-ounce spray bottle, mix mostly water, but with some bleach and a few drops of dish soap or dishwashing liquid. Mix that up, spray it on the area, allow it to sit there, to soak in to wherever you see the discoloration or growth or mold. Allow it to sit there for a short while. And then after 10 minutes or so, making sure you have gloves on and face covering just to ensure that you don't get, as you disturb, because whenever you disturb mold, that will create it to become a little angry, if you like, or a little excited. So some of the spores may become airborne, but you can then wipe the area with a damp rag, get it clean, and then allow it to dry. And then if you see that after it's dried, there's still some discoloration there, repeat the process. So again, spray, allow it to stand there for 10 minutes, then wipe it down. So I know you may not get questions from your clients about this, but certainly surface mold, and it's very common in bathrooms in particular, as I said before, can be wiped down. Even the grout. You'll see grout on countertops and whatnot can start to develop mold if there's been spills and so forth. Easy to wipe down. All right. So really simple. you're hearing it from a restoration company, definitely DIY on Simple Mold. Any questions so far? Straightforward? All right. And by all means, put it in the chat as well. And I'll leave my contact information at the end of this if you have or your clients have any questions about any of this content that we go through. Smoke. Okay, smoke, whether it be from a fireplace or probably more commonly from cigarette smoke, this can be also addressed. Vinegar, baking soda, and even common household cooking spices like cinnamon are all readily available, cheap, and effective in dealing with smoke. So white vinegar is, as you know, smoke residue on walls in particular, it has an oily residue. White vinegar can cut through the oil, so mix it in water, equal parts, and similar to the mold spray, wipe it down as well. And that will you'll see instantly a cleaning effect on the walls. This is again for surfaces where you can wipe. If it's on a soft material, then baking soda, like carpets, for example, you can sprinkle a little baking soda in the carpet, let it stand. Baking soda, of course, you see it in fridges. You know, we have the packets of baking soda in the fridge to absorb odors. So same concept, absorbs the smoke odor. So baking soda is an effective thing, and then you can vacuum it up, or you can just put the boxes opened up around the house, or even pour some baking soda into a cup or a bowl if you don't want the vacuuming process. That will work just as well. And then cinnamon is a great one to boil. It releases beautiful odor. If there's again airborne smells, this will help. Of course, as you know, a nice smelling house will be more attractive to potential buyers. Okay, so again on the smoke is acidic and will stain. You've seen it in homes. You've seen staining on cabinets, on walls, ceilings, and so forth. So of course, just addressing it as early as you can before the showing is a positive thing to do. And then, of course, simple things like ventilation. So fresh air from the outside always helps. Okay, leaks, water leaks, also common. Not all water damage obviously needs a restoration company. So soak it up. Any standing water, just remove that immediately. And then a fan. If you have access to a fan, if there's a fan available, increase the evaporation process. That's obviously really simple, and dry out the affected area as quickly as you can. The longer water is standing, the more damage it's going to make. And of course, you know all about plumbers coming in to fix the leaks, turning off the water. Just quickly on water, and there are a couple of other slides here. Just so you know, there are three we categorize water in three categories. There's category one is potable or drinking water, so from water fountains. It's clean water. Now you'll see it's in toilet tanks. So the water in the tank itself is fine. As soon as it gets flushed, it becomes black water. The second category is gray, often used and redirected now more and more commonly into gardens. So dishwashers, sink drains, as long as there's no food in the sink. Food creates a contamination in water to make it black. So that's the third category. Washing machines is classed as gray water. And then of course, black water, category 3, the most hazardous to humans, so sewer, and even water that's been standing, so gray water that has been standing for more than 24 hours turns into black water because there's a buildup of bacteria in it. So be careful over time. Categories, and that's the same with category 1 water, can become gray and then can become black over time. And the reason I mention this is because category 1 water, safe to address. As soon as you start getting into category 2 and definitely category 3, personal protective equipment be very cautious about cleaning that up yourself. All right, so that's it. Really, I wanted to keep it really, really simple. Questions. I know I didn't cover the range of damages that you might come across, but I wanted just to cover the really simple things. Are there any questions?
I had a question. I was told by a hardware guy that cinnamon acts as a ant repellent. Are you familiar with that?
I am, actually. I am. And I've heard that that's a good thing to, ground cinnamon around the outside of a house will help protect and repel ants. Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
As and in terms for rodents, there are a couple of others. Chili powder, I think, helps. Yeah, so certainly spices around the house can be very helpful to just prevent the infestations.
Right. And I would say, as agents, I don't think we want to be doing some of this kind of mold cleanup and stuff, but we can consult with our clients about what you've told us and just report that this is what a person says and this is how you could deal with that. It's typically we don't want to be hands-on and take on responsibility for delivering, removing surface mold in the listings we're selling and stuff like that.
Yeah, and as soon as mold penetrates the wall, then that becomes a lot more involved.
Right. Heather?
What was I going to say? I appreciate this information because people do often want to save the money and, try to do it themselves. But I know there's a point where we definitely want to call in the professionals. And I think the big thing I also want to remember is if someone has addressed mold, it still should be in their disclosures, right? So we removed mold from a wall and repainted, that should still be in their disclosure packet, right?
Yeah, because that's probably going to show up later on down the road.
Yeah.
I think what Robert's talking about a little bit is surface mold. You might see, like he said, on grout and things like that. I'm not sure that a seller would be obligated to if they cleaned up properly surface mold.
Right, on tile or something.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Certainly cleaning a wall and repainting it, I think seller should disclose that. I would advise a seller to disclose that.
Mm-hmm.
And that probably stands true for odor, smoke damage, where you can remediate it. You can remove the smell, you can remove the staining.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if you need to disclose that previously there was a smoker in the house.
Right.
I don't know. If you've removed the staining and there's no more smell, do you need to say that the previous owner was a smoker?
I wouldn't say so if the house doesn't present itself as a smoked-in house. There are some odors that seem to go away and then they can come back when they get moist again.
Yeah, and actually that happens as well with ash. So if there's been a house that's been affected by a wildfire and ash has got into the roof space or the attic and it's got into the insulation, particularly in the warmer months, that can activate the ash particles and that can create then a recurrence of the smell. In the cooler months, that smell can go away. So yes, and that's true. Smells can come and go depending on the conditions, environmental conditions.
Right. Eric, you have a question?
Yeah, in my experience, I've kind of learned never to use the word mold because we're not experts and we can't determine that. So, if I have a client that's got some staining on the wall, I'm just going to tell them that, there's some staining, some dark staining on the wall, unknown source. Well, I wouldn't even say unknown source, just there's dark staining. And, we really shouldn't use the word mold in our vocabulary because we're not qualified.
That's a good point, Eric. Yeah.
I have a quick comment. Sorry.
Sure.
So I also work in property management, and yes, you should never use the word mold. You should always say discoloration, because that just sounds a lot better
Yeah.
than saying like dark or something, because then they're like, oh, if there's dark, then there's mold, you know? So you
Yeah.
just say discoloration.
Correct. That was
Yeah.
exactly the term I was going to say. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. No, that's, I'm glad you said that. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And
Right.
just to elaborate on that point, that no restoration company should be definitely saying that they can give you a conclusive report on whether the discoloration or staining is anything like mold. That a testing, if you want to be absolutely certain, it needs to be done by a hygienist, industrial, or an environmental technologist. Those individuals are qualified and certified to test those, and they are not ever part of a restoration company. They're independent companies. So it's an independent consultant or company that does the testing. And those testings, that it's a sample of the area that's taken off and tested in a lab. So just visually looking at something, that's not a scientific, obviously, assessment. And that's the difference. So if you ever have somebody saying, oh, look, I can tell you by looking at it, it's Stachybococcus or whatever, don't take that. It needs to be a proper lab tested report.
Well, Robert, then a follow-up question. If you come into a situation where you see discoloration and you're going to remediate it, do you need to have it tested by a secondary company to determine that it is mold, or you just look at it and go, yeah, that's mold, we need to rip it out?
So great question. And there is no state regulation to say that you have to have it tested. So in other words, and look, we're in homes all the time, and our technicians are skilled enough to know whether something is just surface mold, or whether it is just a stain, or whether it's actually mold that's embedded into the drywall or ceiling or what have you.
Or mildew.
So right. So the answer to your question is it depends. It really does. It depends on the extent of it, and then also what either the buyer or the seller thinks about that situation. So if you know the sellers have been having health issues, it may be potentially more coughing or health, or so respiratory kind of issues, because they feel as though that's coming from the environment in the home, then that might be an indicator, that might be a clue that, hey, this could be something that we would want to remediate anyway without having it tested. If you're not sure, remember that testing costs hundreds of dollars. It can cost up to $500-600 to have it tested. So there's a definite cost to have that done. But then that cost could save you thousands of dollars, because it could come up to be, it's just a stain, it doesn't need to be cut out. But then if it does, then of course you've got the additional cost of doing the remediation work. So I hope that answers the question. It depends. You don't have to have all discoloration or staining tested. Sometimes it's sensible. Very often it's a conversation and it's assessment to determine, the risks if you don't get it tested or not. And if you think, oh, look, I'm not going to do anything about it, I'm going to try and wipe it down, and it stays there, obviously then disclose that, and then it becomes up to the new occupants to determine whether they want to address it. Does that help address the question?
That's my question.
Great. And then Robert, what about if someone wants to, are some of these issues, can they be paid for through insurance? I imagine it is dependent on how where they originated from. But that's my first question. And then the second, then would that require that mold test or what have you?
Good question, Heather. So the standard line, if you like, the default for an insurance claim, we do a lot of insurance work, of course, for water and smoke. Mold normally has a cap, and insurance companies look at sudden and accidental, right? Sudden and accidental. Think of those two words. Is this something that wasn't foreseen, so it's not maintenance related. And so, for instance, there might have been a slow leak in the wall cavity, and when you moved a cupboard, for example, the occupants are moving out, and there's this, you come across mold. Well, there's a case then to say, well, hey, all of a sudden we've found this. We didn't know about the leak, the leak in the pipe, which has created the mold. So there would be a case then to put a claim in. Now, there's no easy answer, because then it depends on your carrier, what's in your insurance policy, the wording in your insurance policy, and equally importantly, the adjuster that is assigned to the case to determine whether in a reasonable situation, should have the occupants known that this was occurring or not. So I'm not an insurance expert. Let me put that out there as well. This is, in our experience, what we see in working with insurance carriers and adjusters, daily, about what the kind of things that they look for to determine whether something like that, mold, can be submitted and would become approved as a claim or not. And then remember that you've got all these other issues that have come up since 2017 with the fires. Carriers are looking much more closely at claims, and then there are issues about increased premiums, increased deductibles, and non-renewals. So the whole insurance area, Heather, is something to be very wary about. Just go in it with open eyes, and obviously, insurance expert is the person to consult.
I think we'll invite one in soon.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Robert. Do you want to pop up your contact info there?
I will do that, and you have my information. So we're certified. They're just a list of all our certifications. So by all means, email or text or call me at any time if you have a question. We do over the phone consultation without charging. I'm available. We're an emergency services company, so we're available all the time. So emailing is fine. Texting is a good way to contact me on my cell, which is 239-8233. Just if you just want to ask about, not sure about this, what do you think? What's some of the steps that we should take? One other thing to quickly mention is photographs. Photographs are really helpful. So if you have a photograph of a situation, that tells 1,000 words, of course, and that can make diagnosis, at least initially, a lot easier.
Robert, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think I could get some of your business cards?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to give you some of mine. Who asked that question?
Sandra.
If you want to drop them off at our Santa Rosa office, that would be great.
I will do that for sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Robert. I have to tell you all, Robert's an old friend. He's highly involved in my son and my husband's school. So he is a great guy that I know will be happy to answer any questions and help out if you're trying to figure some stuff out with your clients. So thanks
Absolutely.
so much for coming, Robert.
Thanks so much for having me, and happy Friday, everybody. I'll stop sharing my screen. All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye. Thanks so much. Back to you, Gary. You're muted. You're muted.
Yep. Sorry. Steve, we didn't have a chance to ask him about how far he travels, but do you know, Heather, what his territory is?
Oh, good question. Did he actually sign off? I will text him right now. I believe it's Sonoma County and the surrounding counties.
Okay.
They're Novato, Mendocino, Lake, but I'll text and confirm.
Okay, great. Well, this is a good segue to this form here that it was asked, someone asked us to kind of review the AVID. So remember, the AVID's a part of the TDS, and it was created to help us agents make our disclosures. We used to write in just a little box on the TDS, and it turned out it wasn't really sufficient. And there was a lawsuit that led to broker liability, and CAR got on their horses and created this AVID form. So the proper way to do the AVID, and it is required on single family 1 to 4. If you have a multifamily unit, a duplex, triplex, then you need to do one for each unit. We typically, inspect each unit separately. So that's why you would say it's for unit number 1, 2, 3, 4 here. And in here, you put it's the broker firm, the brokerage name. So we're Better Homes and Gardens Firm, Wine Country Group. And so you're inspecting this for the broker. So do a good job. We do limited, we conduct a reasonably competent and diligent visual inspection of reasonably and normally accessible areas of properties, and disclose to a prospective purchaser, and this is a term that comes up all the time, material facts affecting the value or desirability of that property that our visual inspection reveals. So we're obligated to point out material facts that we observe that affect the value or desirability of the property. The duty applies regardless of who the agent represents. So whether we're representing a buyer or seller, we still need to do the AVID and circulate it among all the parties. So we talked about it, single family 1 to 4. California law does not require the agent to inspect the following: areas that are not reasonably and normally accessible. So we don't climb on roofs, and we don't go into crawl spaces and things like that. Areas off the site of the property. So we aren't obligated to, check out the neighborhood per se, though if we know of something in the neighborhood, that would be good to disclose. Public records or permits. We aren't obligated, and we are encouraged not to by our risk management attorney not to go get public records or permits, because then we become responsible for their completeness and all of those sort of things. So I know sometimes we can't avoid, getting those things. The ideal situation is we would go to the planning department with our client and access those records together, rather than go alone and deliver them to our client. We aren't responsible to look at common areas of planned unit developments, condominiums, or the like. The agent's duty is limited to conduct reasonable, we said the competent, diligent, visible inspection. And then it says again what we won't do. We'll not look under or behind furniture, pictures, wall hangings, or floor coverings. We don't go into cabinets or locked doors or chimneys. We don't evaluate chimneys. Don't go beneath the house. We don't operate appliances to see if they're operating. Electrical, plumbing, pool, spa, we don't run those things to see if they're operating or not. That's up to the seller to disclose. We don't, in this case, in this area, we don't disclose square footage or locate boundary lines, things like that. We have an interesting thing right now where one of our clients bought a house and the fence on the property had been rebuilt about 2 years prior. And then there was a survey done of the neighboring property, and it was shared with the seller. And it showed that the fence actually was about 3 feet short of the property line. So there was more area that the seller owned and was selling than the fence showed. So they didn't disclose this during the sale. They didn't. We represented the buyer. The seller didn't disclose that the fence was not on the property line. Now, the sellers happens to be an attorney, and they say, "Well, you're getting more than what you bargained for. If you want to move the fence to the property line, go ahead. Make yourself happy. But you have 3 more feet there than you paid. Thought you were paying for. So it's a good thing." So we aren't quite sure where that's going to go, because it was a material fact. Was it a material fact that affected the value of the property? They're saying no, you paid for, and you actually got more than what the fence line shows. So it's interesting. We'll see where it goes. Other things, we don't do off-property conditions. Analysis of agents. For any items disclosed as a result of the agent's visual inspection or by others, agent will not provide an analysis or determine the cause or source of the disclosed matter, nor determine the cost of possible repair. So that's nothing we do. So as Eric was saying earlier, if we notice a stain on the wall or discoloration, that's a good word to use. Discoloration on the wall, we just note discoloration on the dining room wall near the window. We don't analyze it. We don't give a cause for it. We just say what we saw. Okay, and then there's the bold language about what the buyer should do. We're trying to make sure the buyer does all the inspections and blah, 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 blah. As we state over in multiple forms. So filling this form out, again, we put the brokerage name in, the date and time of the inspection, the weather conditions, other persons that might be present. So we put all that in there. And then this is a pretty good form for walking through the house. You just follow this, the entryway, the living room, the dining room, kitchen, other rooms, hall, stairs, bedroom 1, 2, 3, 4, bathroom 1, 2, 3, 4, other rooms, other. So, you just walk through. If there's additional rooms or structures, and you might add an addendum. We do look in the garage parking area, as long as they aren't common area. We do walk the exterior of the property, front, sides, and back, and point out what we noticed there. Other observed or known conditions not specified above. And that's where we might put in, we heard the neighbor's kid practicing the drums next door and it made a lot of noise. We might put in something like that. Observed neighbor practicing drums during the day, during the inspection, something like that. So that's pretty much it. Down here, it's the firm who performed the inspection and then by, and this is where you put your name and signature and the date. Yeah. So that's pretty much the form. What do I say additionally about that? Anyone? I mean, you guys are in the field doing these AVIDs all the time. Anyone want to add part of what their practice is in doing an AVID? Mary, what is your basic practice? No. Mary's a high volume agent. You have a particular way you like to do your AVIDs, Mary? You got to unmute. There you are.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, I am.
Oh, okay. Well, I use it at twofold. I use it I do follow the form exactly. And I also at the same time, I handwrite it out on the form when I'm at the house. And then I also note on the form any other unusual things that I don't need to report on the AVID, but I note them for my own knowledge. And then when I get back to the office, I type it up
Okay.
and send it, and then deliver it for signature. A lot of my people don't do DocuSign, or I could go over and DocuSign at that point. But I do the discoloration that you were talking about earlier. I don't call it mold. And I try to note anything relevant, anything that they would like to know. So I'm real careful about that.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a great form that way. I was doing commercial real estate some years back, and when you're inspecting a commercial building, they don't have an AVID per se, and this predated AVIDs. But I did learn a good trick from someone, and that is to always approach the building in the same way. So now the AVID kind of takes us from room to room pretty easily, but in that sense, in the commercial, I always start on the roof and work your way down. If it's a 4-story building, you start on the roof and you work you down to the 4th floor, and then you go to the 3rd floor, and so forth and so on. So there's a methodology, because sometimes you get called, if we get called in the court on these things, they say, well, what is your standard of practice? How do you do this? And you do it exactly like Mary just described there. Heather, you have a comment? Thank you, Mary.
Just one thing that I often will comment is if there's a lot of personal items, and so I can't see, sometimes you can't even walk into the garage, there's so much stuff. So I'll make a comment, many personal items make certain areas unable to inspect, so that I know that, hey, I couldn't even walk in there. I think that can be helpful, so that you are covering yourself, that you weren't able to see the huge crack in the garage floor because it was completely covered in boxes, so that's something I add.
Good. Eric?
Yeah, one thing that it applies to the disclosure statements and also kind of to general marketing and representations. I see agents make these superlative type comments that home totally remodeled, all the plumbing replaced, brand new electric, small crack noted, minor shrinkage detected or something. When we quantify the observation, obviously we're setting ourselves up for substantial liability, because in court, if someone says, well, you call this a small crack, is this really a small crack? Was the home totally remodeled? It's never totally remodeled. It's never all fixed. It's never all replaced. And so it's a gigantic danger zone for people who get overly energetic trying to embellish a property or disclose condition.
Right. And the AVID is not a marketing document. We've had clients or sellers. We did an AVID. I remember one of our agents did an AVID for a seller, and they passed it around. The seller says, I don't like your AVID. You got to take that out. And, there was something in it that the agent observed, and they called me and said, hey, the seller wants me to take this out of the AVID. And I said, well, you can't take it out of the AVID. That's what you observed, and that's what you put down. Just tell them, that's what we have to do. So it's not a marketing document where we're trying to sell a home with this form. It's really a legal requirement that is we're required to do it by statute. Yeah, Heather.
Oh, just one last thing I remembered as well. From Eric reminded me, if you are, sometimes it's hard to explain what you're seeing, and you don't want to say, when you say crack, people want to say small because you're saying, it's not a big deal, whatever. A really useful tool is you can actually add photos into your AVID if there's something that you want to make sure your clients are seeing. It's really simple. When you're in the AVID, up on the right-hand side, it says photos. You click on that, and then it actually will, you upload it, and it'll put the right there on the side, like next to the bathroom. So if you're saying discolored spot, whatever, discoloration, you can have a photo there. I find it especially useful if I have clients that haven't been at the property very much. Maybe they're out of the area or what have you. So that's just a little heads up. Yeah, it's right. Let's see. Up on the top right, it says there's a, yours looks different than mine, but on that little top toolbar where you can e-sign all those things, there is
Yeah.
one that says photo that you can attach. I can show you guys if you'd
Yeah,
like
why
me
don't
to
you
show it.
pull-
I just,
Why don't you pull it
Okay.
up? I've never
Okay.
used that. That's good. Yeah.
Okay.
Pull it up and share it.
all right.
I had another
Right
instance.
here.
Oh, okay, good.
Can you guys see that? The visual inspection. So on the top right here, it says photos. You
Okay,
just click that at attach photo. And
okay,
then you just pull up whatever, the photo you attach it to there. And then it shows up just like this on the document. It says photo
Okay.
1. And
Yeah.
then it actually prints, if they print a copy, or they can click on it and look at it. So that's just a nice little thing to kind of cover yourself if you're finding it hard to describe, or you want someone to note something. That I always try to do my AVID. I love to do my AVID when my clients are there. So if there's anything I'm going to put in there that maybe they haven't noticed, I'm going to point it out in person so they know what, so they're able to get their eyes on it instead of later being like, oh my gosh, there's a crack. What is it? So that's something that I try to do as well.
Heather, how do
Yeah,
you, question, how do you attach the photo to a specific room?
Oh, you just move it around. So once you've attached it, that's a great question. See, I can just take it and put it right here by kitchen.
And then after you take that photo, you do it again.
Yep, you could add multiple ones here, whatever you want to do. Yep. And I usually name the photos. So see here, it says photo 1. I actually name it bathroom discoloration, or, what have you. I don't usually do a whole lot of them, but I like to have a few, if, I find it a useful tool if in certain instances.
great. Thank you for that. I had an agent one time. He was a relatively new agent, and I was looking over his AVID, and he says light switch in the dining room is broken. And you say, well, how do you know the light switch is broken? And he said, well, you turn it on, you flick it, and the light doesn't come on. I said, well, could it be something else? I mean, could it be the bulbs out? I mean, so yeah, be careful of those representations about conclusions of why something happens. And as we read in the form, we aren't obligated to go around and test all the light switches. We don't run the water. We don't flush the toilets. We just visually observe things. We don't really even have to touch anything. Yeah, just limit your representations to what you see, and without analysis or interpretation. Any other questions there?
I just wanted to add one other thing. I really believe that the saying less is more relates to AVIDs. So you sometimes run across agents who are, I am assuming, are thinking they're doing a really great job because they're filling in everything that they've seen in the house, every detail. And I really believe that less is more.
Yeah, and remember, we're only reporting things that might materially affect the value or desirability of the property. So yeah, I've seen that too, where someone, in their AVID is saying, oh, it's got these beautiful curtains. Well, that doesn't really matter. That's not,
Just let it go.
not a material fact.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I would add.
Yeah. Thank you, Mary. That's good. In a similar vein, we've had a question come up this week about square footage, and I know in some markets, the practice has been for agents to measure houses. Well, this is what our attorney says, Bill Jansen, our risk management attorney, says about square footage. We strongly recommend that agents not measure properties. How does an agent know what is permitted living space? I would add there, if we're measuring the house, are we, why aren't we measuring the lot? It starts us down a rabbit hole to start measuring things. Back to Bill. The agent's square footage number becomes a representation by that agent. And if, for example, an appraisal report comes in at a lower square foot number, the attorney for the buyer might allege that the agent made a misrepresentation or was negligent. Bad words. Instead, the agent should put all available square footage numbers in the SFLS form and have the seller sign it and then obtain the buyer's signature. So from whatever source you can find, if you have square footage numbers, you put them into the CAR form and say where you got them, and you leave it at that. Let's see. Curtis has a 100-foot tape measure for sale if you want one. Heather put in the chat that Bravo Restoration covers Sonoma and Marin counties to Calistoga and St. Helena as well. Okay. And they can make referrals to other companies if they don't cover that territory. So, Steve, I hope that answered your question. Any questions on the square footage? Okay. That form, it's required. We require it to be part of all our files. Let's see. See if I had that form in here. Square footage. Yeah. So it's the SFLS. And here's where we would put where we got what the square footage was, or the lot size was per the public records, per the multiple listing service. Many houses have been listed many times. And when you read, taking the new listing, you look at the old listing, it has a certain representation, you should put that in there. Seller says it's this. We got an old appraisal. Condominium map might say what it is. We've got architectural drawings. Might have a survey. So yeah, list everything you're aware of, and then deliver that to the principals. Question came up, as you know, that, well, many of you know that they modified there's no longer a mobile home purchase agreement. Because we use the RPA and attach mobile home addendum, MHA. And so the question is, do we still need the mobile home PA? And yes, we still want to get that because it contains different information than the MHA does. So we're dealing, our TCs will ask you for that if you're dealing with a mobile home. We're dealing with a situation now which has to do with a lot on the Russian River. And the seller believes that the beach below the house on the river is a private beach. Some neighbors believe it's not. The legal description says that the lot goes to the bank of the river. Another neighbor says the bank of the river is considered the mean winter level of the river. So in the summer now, when the river is low and the beach is exposed, it wouldn't be part of the lot. You know, that's the logic, you would think. Anyway, our advice to the agent is, you know, we can't figure that out. You know, we aren't riparian law experts. You know, we can only disclose what the documents we have and who said what to whom, and then let the buyer who comes along figure it out to their satisfaction. They're going to have to be happy with what they're buying, and they're going to have to figure it out on, you know, we just report what we know. Okay. Any questions on that? Anybody got experience with that kind of riparian issue? You know, you probably have it up in Lake County with the lakefront, you know, where the lot lines end, yeah. Not our job. So I want to share one last thing, and then we'll be done for this week. But there's an organization called REBI, R-E-B-I. It's the Real Estate Business Institute. If you're a CRS, certified residential specialist, or a CRB, a certified residential broker, the overriding organization is called REBI now, our Real Estate Business Information Group. And they did a talk the other day, and it was a broker in Florida, and she had a funny accent, but she said some interesting things that I liked. She kind of was opining about where's the kindness, respect, and knowledge in our business. You know, try to operate your business from a place of kindness, respect, and knowledge. And I thought those were good attributes from which to ground your business. She talked about, you know, when you purchased your home, did you go walk in the home and kind of say, aha, this is it? You know, this is the house I want. You know, we generally do find those things. And she made the comment, which I think is generally true, and that if it's a couple, a man and a woman, the woman makes kind of those kind of emotional evaluations more often than not. And she added a comment to that, which I kind of chuckled at, and that is she's never heard a woman ask the price per square foot. So, I mean, we might get in and analyze, you know, well, it's worth this or worth that, you know, because of the price per square foot. And, you know, if you like the house and it's your dream house, you don't really care, right? So, and finally, there's this little mantra she had and uses to remind herself that it's, you know, we're agents and not principals. So she reminds herself, it's not my house, it's not my money, and it's not my decision. So it's not my house, it's not my money, it's not my decision. So we can't insert ourselves into the transactions as if it was our house, or as if it was our money, or as if it was our decision. All of that falls under the principles. So I like those little tidbits. Heather, you have anything more to add? Curtis says, my only involvement with a riparian attorney took 2 years and never got resolution. Yeah, so it's a complex area of the law for sure.
Next Monday, we'll have the foundations training, which is going to be going over setting goals. It's a great time to check in on your own, where you're at, and having a great end of year.
Good, great. We'll see more reminders about that. Send out another email. Okay, great. Thanks for all tuning in, and have a great weekend, and we'll catch you next week. Bye, everybody.